All right, so let's dive into this whole Jesus glow thing that's been really blowing up on social media.
Yeah.
Have you been seeing these like before and after videos where like people are saying, finding Jesus is what led to these like amazing transformations?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
It's everywhere, right? TikTok, Instagram, even YouTube.
Yeah.
But it makes you wonder, right? Is this just like another one of those fleeting internet trends? Or is there something more to it, some deeper going on here?
It's definitely gotten me thinking. What I find really interesting is how this whole trend, it plays into this idea that, an inner transformation that's actually happening on the inside. It can show up as like visible outward changes.
Okay. Yeah.
And, that idea, it has deep roots, especially within our own tradition as followers of Yahweh.
Okay, so you're saying there's like a historical and theological context here that goes way beyond just,
Yeah.
a viral trend.
Exactly. Think about the stories we've grown up with, like Moses coming down from Mount Sinai with his face, like literally glowing after being in Yahweh's presence.
Yeah, that's right.
It's right there in Exodus 34:29. It even says the skin of his face shone. That's not just some random detail, right? It's meant to show us the impact of encountering Yahweh's presence.
Oh, that's a really good point.
Yeah.
I mean, we see this idea all over Scripture, right? Not always a literal glow, but there's definitely this theme of encountering the divine and then that leading to some kind of change that's noticeable to those around them.
Exactly. And that's what makes this Jesus glow thing so interesting. It's like it's tapping into this ancient idea that a real connection, like a genuine connection with the divine, it should show up in our lives in a way that's visible to others.
So how do we reconcile that with all the skepticism that people have about online content, right? It's so easy to wonder if these transformations are actually real or if it's just, people trying to get likes and views.
Right. And that's a valid concern. Discernment is crucial, now more than ever. But I also think it's important to not just dismiss the whole phenomenon outright.
Yeah.
Remember, even in the Tanakh, we see stories of false prophets, right?
Okay.
And people trying to twist religious experiences for their own personal gain.
Yeah, for sure.
So the challenge has always been there, to separate the wheat from the chaff.
Okay. So are you saying we should approach this with like cautious optimism?
Yeah.
Acknowledging that there's potential for both genuine transformation, but also the potential for, let's be real, manipulation.
Absolutely. We can't be naive, but we also shouldn't be closed off to the possibility that some of these stories really do reflect a genuine encounter with Yahweh that's led to a real change in these people's lives.
That's interesting. All right, so let's say we accept that premise for a moment. What then? Like, how should we, as followers of Yahweh, engage with this? Is it something we just kind of observe from a distance, or is there like a deeper meaning here for us to unpack?
Yeah, that's the big question, isn't it? There are definitely a few layers to unpack here. For starters, I think we got to consider how this whole thing's playing out. Like in the context of this digital age we're living in, it's raising all these new questions about how faith is expressed and even experienced online.
That's a good point. It is different from how it used to be.
Yeah.
Like you don't really hear about revivals happening on TikTok.
Right. It's just a different landscape.
Totally. And that difference, I think that's important to acknowledge.
It is. The very nature of social media, it kind of encourages this performativity, right?
Yeah.
So how do we, as people who are, grounded in the tradition of the Tanakh, how do we navigate that? How do we even begin to sort out what's genuine transformation versus what's, just attention seeking?
That's a tough one. It's almost like we need like a whole new set of guidelines for what it means to let your light shine, but in this digital world.
I think you're onto something there. The core principles, those stay the same, right? Living a life that reflects Yahweh's love, pursuing justice, walking humbly with our God, that's always going to be the foundation.
Right.
But the way those principles are lived out, how they're seen and witnessed by others, that's definitely evolving in this digital age.
It's true. It makes me think about the whole idea of community too, right? Like a lot of these Jesus Glow videos, they show this sense of belonging.
Yeah.
Like finding a group of people who share your beliefs and support you on your spiritual journey.
Yeah. And that's a powerful thing. Community is essential. It always has been. We see that going all the way back to the Israelite community, that emphasis on gathering together, supporting one another.
Right.
But the thing is, online communities, they can also become these echo chambers, where certain beliefs get reinforced without any real critical examination.
Yeah, so it's like a double-edged sword almost.
Exactly.
So we need to be aware of that both as individuals and as a community.
We do.
We need to be careful about the influences we surround ourselves with, even online.
Absolutely. Which brings us to, I guess, another layer of this conversation, the personal one. How do we, as individuals who are, actively seeking to deepen our relationship with Yahweh, how do we apply these insights to our own lives?
Yeah, good question.
Do we need to be posting before and after videos to prove that we've been transformed?
Right. Like, is there this pressure now to present a certain image of faith, especially online?
I think that pressure exists, whether we're aware of it or not. But here's the key. True transformation, it's not about outward appearances. It's about the inner work, the ongoing process of aligning our hearts and minds with Yahweh's will.
So the glow isn't the goal, it's more like the byproduct.
Exactly. The glow, if it's real, it should flow naturally from a life lived in close relationship with Yahweh. It's the fruit of a transformed heart, not the cause of it.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
It takes the focus off of performance and puts it back where it should be, on our connection with Yahweh.
And that connection, it's not built on social media trends, right? It's cultivated through prayer, through study, through living out our faith in our daily lives.
So while this Jesus glow thing might be sparking all these conversations about faith in the digital age, the real work of transformation is happening offline, in those quiet moments when we're seeking Yahweh's presence.
You got it. It's about the daily choices we make, how we treat others, how we respond to challenges. It's about allowing Yahweh's love to shape us from the inside out.
Okay, so we've talked about the digital aspect, the community aspect, and the personal aspect. Is there anything else we need to consider when it comes to this Jesus glow trend?
I think it's really important to remember that transformation is a process, not a destination. It's not a one-time event, but an ongoing journey of growing closer to Yahweh.
You mean it's not about reaching a point where we're like perfectly glowing all the time?
Exactly. We're all going to stumble. We're all going to have moments where we fall short, but that's okay. Yahweh's grace is sufficient for us.
So it's about embracing the journey with all its ups and downs and trusting that Yahweh is working in us even when we don't see immediate results.
That's the heart of it. And I think that's a message of hope, especially for those who might be feeling discouraged by the, seemingly effortless transformations they see online.
Yeah, it's a good reminder that real change takes time, effort, and a whole lot of grace.
And that sometimes the most profound transformations are the ones that happen quietly, beneath the surface, unseen by the world.
That actually makes me think of something else. We've been focusing on this individual experience of the Jesus glow, but what about the impact it has on the world around us?
That's an excellent point, and one that I think often gets overlooked. If this trend is really about genuine transformation, then it should be leading to positive change, not just in individual lives, but in the communities and systems we're a part of.
So it's not enough to just glow on our own.
Yeah.
We need to be asking ourselves how that transformation is showing up in our actions, our relationships, our engagement with the world around us.
Exactly. True transformation should make us more compassionate, more just, more committed to tikkun olam, the repairing of the world.
Right.
It should lead us to challenge injustice, to care for the vulnerable, to work towards a world that reflects Yahweh's love.
So in a way, the Jesus glow, if it's the real deal, it should be less about personal gain and more about becoming a force for good in the world.
Precisely.
Yeah.
It should be about using our transformed hearts and minds to make a real difference, to bring light into the darkness, to be agents of healing and hope.
Wow, that's powerful. And it connects back to that idea of legacy we talked about earlier. The true Jesus glow, it's not about going viral. It's about leaving the world a little brighter, a little more just, a little closer to the shalom that Yahweh desires for all of creation.
I couldn't have said it better myself. It's about recognizing that our individual transformations, they're not just for our own benefit, but for the betterment of the world around us.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here. We've talked about the digital age, community, personal transformation, and the impact of the Jesus glow on the world.
And I think through all of that, what we've really been exploring is a deeper understanding of what true transformation looks like, both individually and collectively.
Yeah, it's definitely about more than just a glow up. It's about a heart that's aligned with Yahweh's will, a life that reflects his love, and a commitment to using our transformed selves to make a positive impact on the world.
Exactly. It's about embracing this ongoing journey of becoming more like Yeshua, and in doing so, becoming a force for good in a world that desperately needs his light.
That's a beautiful and inspiring message to leave our listeners with. But before we wrap up, I'm curious, is there one final thought that you'd like to share about this whole Jesus glow phenomenon, something that maybe we haven't touched on yet?
As we've been talking about this whole Jesus glow thing and like the idea of authentic transformation, it's made me think about all the different ways change can actually show up in a person's life.
Oh,
Like
yeah.
it's not always as dramatic as some of these stories we see online, right?
Yeah, that's true.
I think sometimes we can get so caught up in these like big overnight transformation stories that we forget how real change, like genuine change, it often happens gradually.
Hmm.
It's through a series of small choices and little shifts in perspective.
Right, yeah. It's not always like a sudden burst of light. It's more like a slow and steady kind of dawning.
Exactly. Think
Uh,
about it like a seed being planted, right? It
okay.
needs time, nourishment, the right conditions to grow into a strong, healthy plant.
Right.
And it's the same with our spiritual growth. It's a process that unfolds over time, and a lot of it happens in ways that we can't even see with our own eyes.
So how do we, like, recognize those subtle signs of growth then?
Hmm.
In ourselves and in others?
Yeah.
What should we be looking for beyond just the surface level glow?
Well, I think one key indicator is fruit. Like in the book of Galatians, Paul talks about the fruit of the Spirit:
Yeah.
love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, self-control.
Okay.
These are the qualities that should naturally flow from a life that's truly rooted in Yahweh.
So it's not just about, like, feeling good or looking good on the outside.
Yeah.
It's about cultivating these inner qualities, these character traits that reflect Yahweh's nature.
That's it. And that takes work. It takes effort, intentionality. It takes making the choice to align our thoughts and our words and our actions with Yahweh's will, even when it's hard.
It's not always easy.
No, it's not. It makes me think of that verse in Micah 6:8. He has shown you, O mortal, what is good, and what does the Lord require of you? To act justly and to love mercy and to walk humbly with your God.
That's a good one.
It is, right? True transformation, it's about living out those principles: justice, mercy, humility in our daily lives.
Right.
It's about letting our faith shape how we interact with the world around us.
And that brings us back to something we talked about earlier, Tikkun Olam, the idea of repairing the world. If this Jesus glow is the real deal, it should be pushing us to get out there and actively work to make the world a better place.
Absolutely. Our transformation shouldn't be self-contained. It should be overflowing into our communities, our societies, even the way we care for the environment.
So it's not just about personal piety. It's about living out our faith in a way that has a real impact, a positive impact on the world around us.
That's it. It's about being a light in the darkness, a force for justice, a voice for those who don't have one. It's about using our transformed hearts and minds to bring healing and wholeness to a world that's hurting.
That's a powerful and challenging vision.
Yeah.
It makes me wonder, what would it look like for each of us, as individuals, to really step into that calling? How can we take this idea of the Jesus glow and translate it into action?
Well, I think it starts with small steps.
Yeah.
It's about asking ourselves, where can I make a difference in my own little corner of the world? Maybe it's volunteering at a local soup kitchen. Maybe it's speaking up against injustice in our communities. Maybe it's just being a more kind and compassionate person in our everyday interactions.
Yeah. It's about finding those little ways to let our transformed selves shine.
Yes.
And not for our own glory, but for the glory of Yahweh and for the good of everyone around us.
You got it. And I believe that when we do that, when we allow our faith to fuel our actions, we become living, breathing examples of the transformative power of Yahweh's love.
That's beautiful. What a powerful image to leave our listeners with. A vision of individuals transformed by Yahweh's grace, all working together to bring light, healing, and hope to a world that really needs it.
It is. And may we all be inspired to embrace that calling, to let our own Jesus glow shine bright, not as a passing fad, but as a lasting legacy of love and transformation.
Thank you for joining us today on this deep dive into the Jesus glow. We hope this conversation has given you something to think about and maybe inspired you to consider how you can cultivate authentic transformation in your own life and be a force for good in the world. Until next time, may you be blessed with shalom.